Good evening. Tonight, we're covering President Trump's escalating threats against Iran and Hamas, warnings issued Monday after meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at Mar-a-Lago. Trump threatened to knock the hell out of Iran if it attempts to rebuild its nuclear program or ballistic missile capabilities, saying the consequences would be more powerful than the last time. He also warned Hamas there would be hell to pay if it doesn't disarm, though he provided no evidence Iran is actually rebuilding weapons programs. The threats come just 6 months after a devastating 12-day war with Iran that killed 1,100 Iranians. Tonight, we examine whether Trump is preventing war or marching us toward another one. Let me start with Trump's exact words from Monday's press briefing with Netanyahu. Quote, "Now I hear that Iran is trying to build up again, and if they are, we're going to have to knock them down. We'll knock them down. We'll knock the hell out of them. But hopefully that's not happening." End quote. Trump continued, "If they are, we're going to have no choice but very quickly to eradicate that buildup. The consequences will be very powerful, maybe more powerful than the last time." End quote. When asked specifically about supporting Israeli strikes on Iran's missile program, Trump said, "If they will continue with the missiles, yes. The nuclear, fast. One will be yes, absolutely. The other was, we'll do it immediately." End quote. Trump added a peculiar detail about fuel costs. "We know exactly where they're going, what they're doing, and I hope they're not doing it, because we don't want to waste fuel on a B-2. It's a 37-hour trip both ways. I don't want to waste a lot of fuel." End quote. The B-2 stealth bomber was used in June's strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. Trump's comment about not wanting to waste fuel on a multi-billion-dollar military strike that could kill thousands of people is, let's call it, an unusual cost-benefit analysis. Trump's claims without evidence. Crucially, Trump declined to provide any evidence that Iran is actually rebuilding its nuclear or missile programs. When pressed, he simply said, "I hear that Iran is trying to build up again." End quote. From whom? Based on what intelligence? Trump didn't say. And that matters because we've been down this road before. Remember Iraq's weapons of mass destruction that didn't exist? To understand these threats, we need to review what happened 6 months ago during what some call the 12-day war. In June 2025, the U.S. and Israel launched massive strikes against Iran, targeting nuclear enrichment facilities at Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan, air defense networks across the country, military and Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps sites. The strikes obliterated these facilities, according to Trump. They also killed approximately 1,100 Iranians, a devastating toll. Iran responded by firing hundreds of missiles at U.S. bases and Israeli targets. One missile attack hit a U.S. airbase in Qatar, though no American casualties were reported. After 12 days of escalating violence, Trump announced a ceasefire. Both sides claimed victory. Both sides suffered significant damage. Now, 6 months later, Trump and Netanyahu are warning that Iran is trying to rebuild, though the evidence for this claim is murky at best. Israeli intelligence reports. According to Axios, Israeli officials warned the Trump administration earlier this month that an Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps missile exercise could be preparations for a strike on Israel. But here's where it gets confusing. A news outlet affiliated with Iran's Revolutionary Guard reported that missile tests had taken place across the country last week. Iran's official state broadcaster then quickly denied that any tests had occurred. So, did Iran conduct missile tests or not? Even Iranian sources can't agree. This conflicting messaging suggests Tehran is either trying to send ambiguous signals or different factions within the Iranian government are at odds. NBC News reported that Netanyahu and Israeli officials are becoming more concerned that Iran is ramping up ballistic missile production and trying to reconstitute nuclear enrichment sites that were destroyed. But becoming more concerned based on what? Intelligence assessments, satellite imagery, or political motivation to justify another strike? Trump also issued stark warnings to Hamas, threatening hell to pay if the group doesn't disarm. Hamas must disarm for the next phase of the Gaza peace plan to begin, Trump said. If they don't, it would be horrible for them and there would be hell to pay. Trump added that Hamas would be given a very short period of time to give up its weapons, and if they don't, other countries that wanted the ceasefire deal to be made will go and wipe them out. There are several problems with this ultimatum. Problem number 1. Hamas says it already has. Hamas has stated repeatedly that it disarmed as part of the ceasefire agreement Trump brokered, but Israel disputes this, saying Hamas still has significant weapons stockpiles hidden in Gaza. Who's telling the truth? It's impossible to verify without independent international monitors on the ground, which neither Israel nor Hamas has agreed to allow. Problem number 2. What does disarm mean? Does it mean Hamas hands over every weapon to international monitors? That Hamas members lay down arms but remain in Gaza? That Hamas dissolves as an organization entirely? The terms of disarmament have never been clearly defined, which makes enforcement impossible. Problem number 3. Who enforces this? Trump said other countries would wipe out Hamas if they don't disarm. Which countries? The Arab states that supposedly guaranteed the ceasefire? Egypt? Saudi Arabia? None of these countries has expressed willingness to militarily occupy Gaza and forcibly disarm Hamas, so Trump's threat may be hollow. Iran has not stayed silent in the face of Trump's threats. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian said last Friday that the US, Israel, and Europe are waging a full-fledged war on Iran. He warned that if Israel and the US attack again, they would face a more decisive response. Trita Parsi, executive vice president at the Quincy Institute, a think tank promoting diplomacy, told Al Jazeera that the Iranian response would be much harsher if the country is attacked again. This is a significant escalation in rhetoric. After the June strikes, Iran's response was measured. Missile attacks that inflicted some damage but were carefully calibrated to avoid massive US or Israeli casualties that would trigger all-out war. But if Trump strikes again, Iran may calculate that restraint hasn't worked and respond with overwhelming force, potentially targeting oil infrastructure, US bases across the Middle East, or even using cyber attacks against American critical infrastructure. Iran's domestic situation. Trump noted Iran's economic problems. They've got a lot of problems. They have tremendous inflation. Their economy is bust. Their economy is no good. And I know that people aren't so happy. Trump is right about this. Iran's currency, the rial, has dropped precipitously in recent weeks, causing widespread protests. Over the weekend, shop owners in 2 large Tehran malls closed their businesses to protest the currency collapse. President Pezeshkian was elected with historically low turnout after his predecessor died in a helicopter crash. The regime faces serious legitimacy challenges. Trump seems to believe this economic pressure will force Iran to make a deal. On Monday, he said, "If they want to make a deal, that's much smarter. They could have made a deal the last time before we went through a big attack on them and they decided not to make the deal." But here's the problem. Cornered, economically struggling regimes don't always capitulate. Sometimes they lash out. Iran could decide that if they're going to suffer economically anyway, they might as well rebuild their deterrence capability. No discussion of Trump's Iran policy would be complete without mentioning Senator Lindsey Graham, the South Carolina Republican who serves as Trump's most hawkish advisor on Iran. Graham visited Israel earlier this month and repeated Netanyahu's talking points about Iran's missile threat. He warned that Iran is producing long-range missiles in very high numbers. "We cannot allow Iran to produce ballistic missiles because they could overwhelm the Iron Dome," Graham told the Jerusalem Post, referring to Israel's air defense system. "It's a major threat." Graham is a classic Iran hawk, someone who's been pushing for regime change in Tehran for years. His influence on Trump is significant and concerning because Graham represents the most aggressive possible approach to Iran. Trump was asked Monday whether he would support overthrowing the Iranian regime. His answer was cautious. I'm not going to talk about overthrow of a regime." That's actually a relatively restrained response from Trump, suggesting he's not yet committed to full regime change as policy. But with Graham in his ear and Netanyahu pressing for action, that could change. Let's step back and look at what's really happening here. Trump campaigned on ending America's forever wars and avoiding new military entanglements. Yet in his second term, he's launched strikes against ISIS in Nigeria, seized Venezuelan oil tankers and struck drug facilities in Venezuela, conducted the 12-day war with Iran that killed 1,100 people, threatened to strike Iran again if it rebuilds weapons programs, warned Hamas of annihilation if it doesn't disarm, maintained massive military operations throughout the Middle East. This isn't reducing American military commitments, it's expanding them in new directions while maintaining existing ones. Trump claims the U.S. and Israel have been extremely victorious against their enemies, and that if the U.S. didn't beat Iran, you wouldn't have had peace in the Middle East. But has the Middle East actually achieved peace? Gaza remains devastated. Hezbollah in Lebanon is weakened but not eliminated. Iran is economically struggling but still a regional power. Syria remains chaotic. Yemen's civil war continues. The peace Trump describes looks a lot like the temporary exhaustion that follows intense violence, not the sustainable diplomatic resolution of underlying conflicts. The questions nobody's asking. What happens if Iran calls Trump's bluff? If Iran does rebuild missile capabilities and Trump doesn't strike, his credibility is destroyed. If he does strike, we're back to war. What's the endgame? Even if Trump obliterates every Iranian nuclear and missile site again, Iran will rebuild again. Unless the goal is permanent regime change, which Trump says it isn't, this becomes an endless cycle of strikes and rebuilding. Where's Congress? The Constitution gives Congress the power to declare war. Trump has launched military actions in multiple countries without congressional authorization. Where's the oversight? What about allies? European allies are not eager for another U.S.-Iran war. Trump's unilateral approach strains alliances and isolates America diplomatically. President Trump stood next to Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday and threatened to knock the hell out of Iran based on unverified intelligence that they're rebuilding weapons programs. He warned Hamas there would be hell to pay if they don't disarm, though the terms of disarmament remain undefined and enforcement mechanisms don't exist. And he framed all of this as preventing war and achieving peace. But threats without diplomacy aren't peace, they're just the prelude to more violence. Trump says he hopes Iran makes a deal, but negotiations require both sides believing the other will act in good faith. When one side repeatedly threatens to eradicate and knock down the other while providing no evidence for accusations, while imposing crushing economic sanctions, why would Iran trust that any deal would be honored? The path Trump is on, maximum pressure, repeated threats, occasional military strikes, has been tried before. It didn't bring Iran to the negotiating table under Trump's first term. It didn't work under Obama or Bush. Maybe this time will be different. Or maybe we're watching the slow march toward a war that nobody wants, but nobody knows how to prevent.